On this, we're joined by Seijiro Takeshita. He's a professor at the School of Management and Informatics at the University of Shizuoka. Welcome back to the program, Professor. Now, the Nikkei surged to new highs while the yen strengthened against the dollar, showing investors are pretty optimistic. So was this the best outcome for markets?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about the boost. And the biggest reason for this is that now the legislations will go through very smoothly because with this absolute majority, the lower house can basically outrule or overrule, the upper house decision, meaning that, all the legislation will pass through without much problems. Until now, we had a lot of problems where we had to basically negotiate in every single policy and get the consensus from, other opposition parties. But that's not going to happen. Things will be a lot smoother and clearer.
Right, and on that note, Takaichi's win paves the way for her promised tax cuts and spending plans. Could this finally end Japan's deflationary mindset?
Well, we're already out of the deflation condition, especially with the inflation that would being caused by external factors and weakening the yen. But your question about tax cut is a tricky one. I think this is the trickiest one because she has not really defined where she would get that fund from. It could be limiting to temporary measures, but once you induce it temporary measures and you want to reduce it back over to 8%, that would be very difficult in 2 to 4 years time. So this is one of the thorn in the throat of many of the issues that are occurring right now. But she did use that to basically attract the public's attention, that she does care about the everyday life of the Japanese people who are starting to basically suffer from the inflationary conditions.
And looking at Japan's debt burden, which is the highest in the developed world, could sourcing funds
Mhm.
from non-tax reserves unsettle markets once again?
Mhm. This is a question, that always comes up. And again, I'm not going to say that we should sit on the couch and forget about it because obviously, as you pointed out, we have the highest, debt to GDP amongst all nations. But that said, people should look at the net debt. In other words, our asset as well, which is quite substantial. And if you look at that, our level of net debt is around 100 to 130%. So from that point of view, it's not something that one should be excessively worried about. And if you look at the CDS, credit default swap, the sovereign premium in Japan is lower than that of the United States. So again, this is something that we should be worried about, but not something that we should be excessively worried about. What we should be looking at right now is growth revival, and that's exactly what Takaichi Sanae's regime is going for.
We're also looking at increased military spending. Does this make defense
Yeah.
stocks the new must-have after the tech boom?
Well, you can see that today's market, all the heavy and some of the electronics, like Mitsubishi Heavy, Kawasaki Heavy, Mitsubishi Electric, they're all going for, they've all shot up almost like a double-digit increase on one day. And of course, there's going to be a lot of expectation. I think what is going to happen is that, again, people tend to have this idea that we're going back into the right-wing phenomena in the 30s, but that's not the case. Our, military spending to GDP will exceed 2%, and which is very low in comparison to the 5% target in Europe and rest of the world. But yeah, you're right. I think people will be looking very closely at, those who would benefit from the changes and also smooth legislation that will go through as far as defense spending is concerned.
Professor Seijiro Takeshita from the University of Shizuoka, thank you very much for joining us.